Welcome to NWA Connie Corso's podcast, where we talk all things dogs.
Gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Good evening.
We got to the intro. We got people in here too waiting, so it actually worked.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Hey everybody, we back with another show. This gonna be a good one here with Brother Hecker and Brother Clyde. If it's your first time tuning in, I want to start with Brandon introducing yourself and letting the people know who you are and what you do, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So for the folks that don't know me, my name is Brandon. Some people know me as Hecker. Whichever rolls off the tongue easier for you, I'm cool with it. I am a dog trainer, of course, amongst a few other things. I'm a father, I'm a husband, so on and so forth. As far as, just my dog credentials, man, the biggest credential I can give you, I am a student of the late, great Gypsy Stratton. That is my foundation. It's specifically in the protection world. So, if you know anything about Gypsy, then you know everything about me. That's the best way I can introduce it.
Hey, that's what's up. Clyde.
Hey, good evening, everybody. If this is your first time to the show, I'm Clyde Thompson. I'm down in Muskogee, Oklahoma. I am a self-taught, just trial and error dog trainer. I specialize in pet and family dogs and family or personal protection. Uh, I wasn't as fortunate enough to have a good mentor like Brandon with Gypsy, so a lot of my training was just through trial and error. I did read one book, and that was the Kohler Method of Dog Training, and that was the first book I read. And I the concepts and methods in that book just felt like it was the closest thing at the time to real protection work. And I'm more about practicality. I like practical things. I don't do a lot of tricks with my dogs. I'm into more practical things, so you won't see me doing a whole bunch of training. I'm not even training my dog every day because the type of training I do, he doesn't have to have it daily. Like Brandon said, I'm a family man as well, so I get to spend time with families, and there's so many other things that I love to do besides dog training. But pet and family dogs, especially German shepherds, that's my bread and butter. And I like to help people. I like to dispose or make the general public aware of the differences between different types of training and dogs and things like that, because there's a lot of BS out here in this dog world, and I'm just not. I got a almost a zero tolerance for the BS, man, and if I hear it or see it, it's hard for me to keep my mouth shut. But this particular podcast, I think, is supposed to be some question and answering about protection dogs. So I'm here to share anything that I do know, and the things that I don't know. I'm just like Brandon. Hey, I'm still learning. So let's get it on.
That's what's up. And I'm your host, Joe. And my whole goal is I'm the middleman. I go find the experts, I go find unique guys with unique skills, with knowledge on different subjects, and I try to get them in your face because it's kind of hard to do, you know. So let me pop off the questions. Hey guys, you got any questions? Just throw them in the chat. It's gonna be kind of freestyle tonight. But I want to start out with this one. What is the likelihood of a dog protecting you that doesn't have the protection training?
You want to go
Brandon, you want to
first?
jump in?
Okay. Yeah, I'll go first. The likelihood of a dog protecting you that doesn't have training. Well, it's kind of a loaded question, right? Because there's many different what Gypsy has coined the defensive protocol, right? So you have alarm, challenge, threat, display, engage. So that is the phases of protection. So technically, right, if a dog barks at someone and that dog makes that person believe that it will bite, even if it doesn't bite, that dog technically protected that person, technically, right? So you do have a lot of dogs that will bark, right, and make you believe that they will bite. But as seasoned dog men, we know a lot of those dogs will not bite because if you move forward towards a lot of those dogs, they're going to back up. Most of them. It's very rare that a dog will actually challenge a human being coming towards them, right? Especially in a threatening manner. Most dogs will run the opposite way. So if we're talking about, if we're encompassing the entire, again, the defensive protocol, which ends in engage, most dogs will not. Most dogs will run away. Very few, a select few, will actually engage without training.
All right, Clyde.
So I'll chime in. So I agree with what Brandon just said, but I'll say this: it's an individual thing. You just gotta know the dog that you have, and some dogs are genetically mean. Some dogs
Mm-hmm.
are that dog. Some dogs will bite you whether you running, whether you facing them, whether you posing a threat. They're just that dog.
Mm-hmm.
But in most cases, like Brandon said, if your dog would just bark at the average man, show the average man some teeth. In some cases, all he got to do is stand up and stare at him.
Mm-hmm.
And the average person without any protection and equipment, most people's not going to challenge your dog. The first thing they're going to do is say, "Hey man, get your dog."
Right.
So a lot of times this protection training and this protection dogs, man, they take that stuff way too far. They invest way too much time, way too much money, because in most cases, don't none of them that do all this extensive training live their lifestyle where they may actually need that dog. So they become enthusiasts. But let me stay on track, Joe. A dog doesn't have to have training to protect you or bite you. It's just about knowing your dog. And if you know your dog, and if that dog will bark, will stand his ground, I'm like Brandon said, to me that's a level of protection.
Mm-hmm.
So you take a Chihuahua that run out after you. You know, you walk by somebody's street and the little Chihuahua come running off the porch. Most people's gonna step away from that Chihuahua.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would I want a Chihuahua if I really felt like there was going to be somebody coming in my house or somebody actually really becoming a real threat to me? No, I would not. But that Chihuahua, just that barking, will allow me in most cases to do something to prepare myself for whatever is coming.
Right. Right. Let me ask you this right quick. I see some questions coming in, but let me get mine off. Uh, how soon do I know you guys can train any dog to a certain level? But how soon do you see a prospect that you feel like okay, shit, I got me one? How soon do you see it in the dog?
You mean in our personal dogs that
Yeah,
we?
yeah,
Man,
yeah.
with me being having the experience that I have now and knowing what I know now, I can see it. I can see my puppy's future, my dog's future at, hey, when he's 6 weeks old, coming out the doghouse. You know,
Mm,
there's certain things that I can start to see about him. And a lot of times between 6 and 10 weeks of age, I done picked out my puppy. And I done picked him out according to some of the things that I see and that I know I may need and want in my big dog. So me as a trainer, I can see it early on.
what about you, Hick?
Yeah. I'm still developing that eye for puppies. The first thing that I look for immediately, which is the most important thing, is confidence. A confident puppy for me typically uh, is a puppy that ends up faring well, as they get older.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that
I
would be the
agree. You got to have
major.
confidence.
Yeah, that would be the major thing I look for. And confidence doesn't necessarily mean that they're the most courageous, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that can mean like they can be a little unsure, but how fast do they recover from the uncertainty, right? Do they run, like literally, will they run to China, if they hear a strange noise, or will they get a little spooked but look at it and then go investigate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, those are the kind of things that I look for. And you can see that fairly early, in puppies. So that's my barometer that I typically use when I'm looking at puppies.
How important do you think the genetics of your dogs play in that pick? Is it because you keep seeing it, Clyde, or what?
So man, genetics is very important, and And really, yes, in my dogs that I raise and breed, it's because I've handpicked the mom and the dad. So, uh, if the mom and the dad doesn't show or have anything that I would want in a puppy, then I don't breed those dogs. So I breed dogs that's going to be genetically capable
Mm-hmm.
from the beginning. So that's my first start, is breeding dogs that I know is genetically capable. And then what I choose to do with those genetics, that's on me. Because you can have a dog that's genetically capable and you can put him in the hands of a poor trainer and he won't get the same thing out of that dog where somebody else, a more experienced trainer, will. But genetics is a great starting point. You cannot get around or beat genetics. Now there's always that exception to the rule. There's always, I mean, before I knew genetics, my first German Shepherd, I found him in the neighborhood running down the street. A dog had a litter of puppies under an abandoned house, and she was running across the street one day, and I picked me out a puppy. I caught me a puppy, and it just so happens that that little puppy, I mean, they had to be bred decently because this puppy was about their life, you know. Uh, but I didn't know anything about genetics then. So, but even without knowing, they have to have it genetically, and then you can develop it. And depending on how well, that depends on how good of a trainer you are.
Gotcha. What's up, Hecker?
What was the question?
How important it what role does genetics play in for us making a good protection dog?
Oh man, it's first and foremost. You know, that's there's no way around that. Um, specifically if we're talking about the dogs that I choose for my personal, dog.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm sure we're going to get into the conversation. The dogs that are in the general public, they typically don't fall in the category of the dog that I look for, to be in my house and feed. But yeah, man, genetics are extremely important. I don't know if you heard just now, my wife came in the door, my little puppy that I kept out of the most current litter, she already barking, growling when the door opened. So those are things that I look for personally, in dogs, and that's genetics. That's not anything I taught her. I mean, she's only 11, 12 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's not anything I taught her. That is her genetic code. That is her biology telling her, hey, there's a strange noise, right? I don't like it. Let whoever is making this strange noise know I don't like it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So genetics is very important.
Yeah. So my Infinite K9, shout out to Infinite K9. Let me give y'all some shouts out because I know y'all like when I make you famous. Asiatic Soldier, salute. Evander Thomas, salute. Kenny Troiano, Bred to Perfection is in the house. Doug is in the house, salute. Vicente Moore, all you guys. Broken Bow, K9. Shout out to all you guys. Do y'all train young trainers? I plan to breed Corso in the future. Have one now, planning to do protection.
So I
Uh,
love it when young guys come along, man, and they want to learn. I'm open and willing to share anything that I know. And so many dog trainers, they act like that they got the best kept secret, and so many of them are not willing to pass on that knowledge. But me personally, man, if there's a youngster or anybody that's wanting to jump into this game and learn, I'm willing to pass on and share what I know. And I don't know it all. I don't claim to be the best. Uh, but if it's something that I know, I'm very well and very good at teaching it as well and explaining it. So to answer his question, I love to help people gain knowledge about this dog game.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah, look, man. Gypsy invested in me.
mm-hmm.
So it would be almost treacherous if I didn't pass the baton. Because I didn't, like Clyde said, a lot of these trainers act like they reinvented the wheel, right? We all know none of this information is new. I don't care how you train.
Hey,
None of the
hey,
information.
hey, they want to make it. They want to make it their method.
Right, right. When we all know it's only but so many methods. Ain't nobody making up no new methods, right? Now, obviously, we all have our little nuances, right, within the realm of the same 3 or 4 different methods of how to train a dog, right? So I
Exactly.
get, you reserve your little nuances, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, man, ain't none of this information new. So I don't feel like I need to hold on to it because, again, I wouldn't be here if the man that taught me held on to it. He gave me everything he could before he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And
um,
and to add to that, man, that's actually how I met and got acquainted with Brandon. I
yeah,
ran across a couple of his videos, and I seen some things that he had said that he was new to the game and or just started, actually showcasing his talent, and I reached out to him, and I seen a few things that I pointed out to him, and I asked him, did he mind if I share my knowledge with him on this? And he can let it either go in one ear out the other, or he can take it and put it in his memory bank. And I reached
mm-hmm,
out to him, and he welcomed me. But a lot of times when you reach out to people and ask, hey man, can I point this out, or can I speak on this? A lot of trainers don't even they don't want that coming from another trainer.
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm.
They'll shut the door on you real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
And
don't. Go
I,
ahead.
I don't, I didn't receive most trainers, because I put it to you like this, right? I like to believe I have a high level of discernment. So I know when people are genuine and when they really want to help. And I know when people are trying to uh, edify themselves
Mm-hmm.
to make it seem like they are the authority, in this industry. I can tell the difference pretty fast and pretty good. So, you especially, and we all know our favorite group, that protection group.
Yeah.
you know, uh, you got so many expert trainers, top-notch trainers in that group. Everybody's a top-notch trainer in that group, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you got the people that come on and give their perspective, but they do it in a way like it's almost like they are
Condescending.
they're very condescending.
Yeah.
They package it in a way like, yeah, I want to give you this information, but at the same time, you dumb as hell, so you should just listen to me because I know everything.
Right.
You
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Q.
So, and I was already aware of Clyde. I had seen his YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
So I was already aware of the work that he did. And then of course, I saw the interview that he did, when Gypsy and him did the interview together.
Mm-hmm.
So I had already knew a lot of our ideology had aligned. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
of course, I mean anybody that I feel like one is genuine, that truly wants to give information, and I feel like have information that I can benefit from, I'm all ears.
How?
It would be stupid of me not to.
Yeah, because I run into that a lot, even with this show. Uh, you know, some people don't agree with maybe everything on the show, and you'll never get two men agree totally on
Mm,
everything. But this one guy, Brian, I was talking to, he was like, he said, Joe, some of the stuff on the show is problematic because it affects people money.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I said, oh dang, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because like when you I know like how Clyde is with a board and train, he's straight up what he says, well, it ain't always been it's more beneficial to the trainer
Right.
than to the owner of the dog. But anyway, let me track back to what I was going to say. How often do you find guys that are the chop, iron sharpens iron, that chop it up with you on training, and like what you get right here and what you get, like, tips and tools? Does that happen a lot in y'all world, or is it pretty much shut down? Oh, okay.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. A lot of, especially with, the ideology that Clyde and I, share as far as defense, the style of training that we that we favor. Most people are sport trainers. So, just off the bat, it's with button heads for the most part. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So for me personally, it's very few people that I've found that I can just sit and listen to. Even if I disagree, they will probably never know, right? Because I'm gonna take everything that they're giving me, right? And again, use my discernment, like, man, okay, I hear what he was saying there. I don't necessarily agree with that. That doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. It's just that I feel like my nuanced way to do it fits my objective a little bit better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. You're right.
But the vast majority, like when Clyde and I speak, it's funny. It's sometimes it's almost like hearing Gypsy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's easy just to sit and listen. It's very rare that me personally, that I get somebody like that.
Right. Clyde, what do you think about like that? Is it easy to talk to other trainers, just chop it up on tools and techniques, or what? Or is it pretty much a lot of resistance in it?
So a lot of times it's not, man, because most trainers are so hooked on their technique, they ain't interested in learning anything different. Especially when some of them, they already think that they're better than you from the beginning. So it's kind of like, you can't tell me nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it saying my network is lost?
Uh-oh. Clyde, just come back in. There he is.
Money, man. A lot of the times, the things I say, yeah, it will fuck with somebody's money, but it's the truth, And like I told you, most of my training is practical. It'll fit in any situation. So anything that I do or tell somebody, I don't care where they go, and tell it to the next person probably can't pick it apart because there's so much truth to what I said and to what's done. It's so practical. It's so useful.
Yeah.
So again, kind of like I told you about the boarding train. Yeah.
You fell off. Yeah, it's his internet. I'm gonna keep going. Hold on, let me change the screen up. Hey, Hecker, so at what age would you start protection training or imprinting?
So imprinting starts immediately, like from, really from the time, if it's my litter, from the time them puppies open their eyes and start walking. I'm starting to imprint in some shape, form, or fashion.
Right.
Whether it's picking them up, doing, fiddling with their ears, fiddling with their feet, opening their mouth, doing everything to get them comfortable with being tampered with.
Right.
So, but of course, if it's a dog that I, receive outside of, my own production, then, whenever I get that puppy, it starts immediately. But as far as when do I start protection training on a puppy? Ideally, I don't want to see a dog before it's 9 months at the earliest. And in rare cases, it has to be a special dog to start earlier than that, right? It has to be one of those, one out of 50 dogs that's just genetically a monster, right? It's just born with everything that you will want already.
Right.
But that's rare, of course. But on the average dog, really, I don't want to see a dog before it's 9, 10 months. I just really want to give a dog at least that amount of time just to kind of grow into, that natural uh awareness, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's at the earliest. Really, ideally, I would like to see dogs when they hit about a year.
Gotcha. How this is Infinite K9. How will one go about proving a protection dog?
Proving or
Yeah.
proofing?
Proving.
Well, I mean, there's a series of tests or assessments or evaluations you can do on a dog to see what level it's at, and then obviously once you make that assessment, then you can determine what needs to be done to get that dog to the next level, right? So I have a series of things that I do to test and see where a dog is. So that way we can put the game plan together and get it to where the customer or where I wanted to be if it's my dog.
Gotcha. Broken Bow K9. Genetics has to be important, although I think a lot of people underestimate the first 30, 60, 90, 180 days of imprinting, socialization, letting the dogs learn from each other. Gotcha. Ajax shoulder, listen. Let's see here. I breed. Okay. Talk about the importance of luring and free shaping and fasten a dog to build food drive for training.
Yeah, well, um, how can I answer this question, right? So, okay, I'll put it to you like this, right? There's nothing wrong with those methods. I use those methods as well. They're not the main, or they're not the method that I use all the time, right? Like you see pretty much on every video on social media where all the trainers are luring dogs because it looks good on video, right?
Right.
And it makes the fur moms feel good, if I'm being honest, right? It makes all the purely positive and force-free trainers, it gets their it gets their emotions riled up, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
so do I use those methods? Yeah, I use those methods, specifically more so in puppies. I'll use those methods a whole lot more in puppies than I do older dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And this is if I'm getting an older dog in for training, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so because obviously a puppy mentally, the more pressure you put on a puppy, the faster you're going to break that puppy down because they're just not mentally strong enough to handle, leash pressure or any other pressure like that. So it's definitely more advantageous to use those techniques on puppies. I mean, food as a motivation, right? I don't necessarily use treats. I will use food. I use food all the time for training because I got to feed the dog anyway,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we all know, I mean, let's be honest. It's not like, look, my wife tells me she loves me all the time, right? And I believe her. But when she cooks for me, it's like, ooh, you really do love me, right? So
Mm-hmm.
me telling my dog, good boy, right? He gets that adrenaline rush, but they get the adrenaline rush a little bit more when you bring that food out, right?
Right.
So it does motivate them more. So of course I use that to my advantage. But again, I don't use high value treats.
Mm-hmm.
I use the food that I'm gonna feed my dog anyway. But as far as fasting dogs, that's have I done it? Yes. Um, do I do it to build food drive in a dog? No. A lot of people will borderline starve dogs just to build their food drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't operate like that. because that's not the only way I know how to train a dog. So if a dog comes to me, some dogs don't have a high food drive. I'm not about to go buy a whole bunch of high value treats and I'm not doing all that, because then it takes the training outside of me, right?
Right.
I become reliant on this high value treat, so to speak.
Mm.
And more importantly, especially if if the dog is a board and trained, my goal is to teach people how to essentially become a trainer. I'm trying to give you my brain. I'm not trying to give you a treat so you can bribe the dog, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I try to minimize the amount of third party tools as I possibly can, right? I try to keep it to the things that we're going to have on the dog anyway: a leash, a collar, me,
Yeah.
the dog, and food, right? You
Right.
have to have those things.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to keep my training as simple as possible. That way it's easier for the handler or the owner of the dog to continue what to continue on the foundation that I build on that dog.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my mindset when I'm training other people's dogs.
Gotcha.
Specifically in obedience. We're talking about obedience.
Okay. Gotcha. Clyde, he's trying to come back in. He might be having some internet issues, but we're gonna keep rolling. Doug says, let's see here. Most of the trainers I see on social media are more focused on prey drive and bite work instead of using the defense drive for protection. What steps do you take to train using defense?
Well, again, everything goes back to that defensive protocol that I spoke about earlier. So when I assess a dog, right, I'm looking for the dog to progress through that defensive protocol, which is alarm, challenge, threat display, engage, right? I'm looking to see what level the dog gives me in those particular steps, right? Because every dog is going to be a little bit different,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the easy answer is that, right? That is the basis of when I'm evaluating a dog. How much bark is this dog going to give me, right? How
Mm-hmm.
much challenge is this dog going to give me? What does the threat display look like in this dog? And will this dog willingly bite without being trained to bite? Even if it doesn't have a great bite, is it willing to bite?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If
Right.
it's willing to bite, oh shoot, especially on an evaluation, man, everything else is a cakewalk,
Right.
because everything after that is training, right?
Gotcha.
But as you know, again, we were talking about genetics earlier. You can't train genetics. The genetics are the genetics. Now you can manipulate the environment around the dog, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is what we call epigenetics.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you really have to be a good trainer to take a dog that comes to you as a 1 or a 2 and build that dog up to a 6 or a 7, as opposed to most trainers, and we we hit on this the last time, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want that dog to be a 6 or 7 or 8 from birth, and then they maybe build it up to a 9 by putting some obedience on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they're calling themselves trainers.
Right.
If you look at that, that discrepancy there, you take a dog from 1 and build it up to 6 or a 7, right? Or you take a dog from a 6 or a 7 and build it up to an 8 or a 9. Who's the better trainer?
Mm-hmm.
To me, the person that takes the dog from a 1 or 2 and build it up to a 6 or a 7,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Because the threshold between point A and point B is much larger, which means you have to use your brain more,
Right.
right?
Yeah. That's what we was talking about earlier when we said you're gonna get it to a certain level,
Mm-hmm.
like whatever dog it may be, a good trainer. You
Right.
know what I mean? So period. Imprint. Let's see here. Bang. Agreed. I was referring to pups and OB training.
Yeah.
Malaventures PHTV. Personal protection dogs need the civil aggression. That's a question.
Absolutely. 100%. That's what defense is about. Well, I mean, that's the as far as the mentality of the dog, right? It has to be civilly aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
It has to have a natural aloofness to strangers.
Right. Clyde is back in the house. Hold on one
Yes,
second.
sir.
I don't know what happened. Can y'all hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
we can hear you, bro. Let me straighten out this screen right quick. I hope you ain't got Cox internet like I do.
Man, no, actually, I was I guess it was just my phone data at the time. I wasn't even at the house. I was just over at my horse and dog pen. But now I'm hooked up to some Wi-Fi.
Okay, okay, good. Okay. Let me go back to a question. Damn it. Where was that question? Right here. Broken Bow Canine. I want to hear your thoughts. Brandon already told it here. Hey, I see the chat filling up. Welcome everybody. You got questions? Drop them in the comments. Any questions? We don't care. Clyde, this one says, yo, talk about the importance of luring and free shaping and fasting a dog to build food drive for training.
So I don't personally use I don't build food drive. If my dog don't have food drive, then I use another training method. And most of the only time I start with food is with my young puppies. That way I don't have to put a leash or anything on them. I give the foundation set without actually controlling the puppy that much. But when a dog don't have food drive, I don't build it. You can't. The only way you can build food drive is by starving out your dog. And when you're starving out your dog, that's not building food drive. Hell, he's hungry. He's hungry. He's starving. He want to eat. So me personally, man, I don't build food drive. I use food if they will still work for it without me having to starve them or make them miss their regular meals.
Okay,
Does
gotcha.
that make sense?
Yes, sir. Here's one. Let's say Broken Bow Canine. Let's say you have a well socialized and exposed Connie Corso pup that's now 9 months old. Can you walk us through some of the first exercises you do to build on a Corso for protection work?
Brandon, you want to start with that?
Yeah, I guess because Corsos are my forte as well. So I guess I'll take that on. So, some of the first exercises. Well, really, one of the first things that I start with any dog, for the most part, is a technique that we call stalking a dog, right? And really, really, what you're doing is building the suspicion in a dog, right? So that's the first thing. Typically, I start with a quote unquote green dog, and when I say a green dog, a dog that has never seen nothing before, right? As far as protection training is concerned, because I want to see using that defensive protocol that I told you about, right? So typically, with stalking, without giving too much information, because y'all gonna have to pay for the for the juice, for the sauce.
They dig it tonight.
Yeah. You got to pay for the sauce, but I give you this, right? With stalking, typically you want to start far away, right? Because what you're testing for, at least when I do it, what I'm testing for is to see with that movement that we do in stalking, right? That shifty movement, that what's the word I'm looking for? That strange movement,
Sketchy.
right?
Yeah.
Sketchy. Thank you. Yeah, that sketchy movement. And it's something that you actually have to learn. As crazy as it sounds, it's an art form that you have to learn, right? It's like acting, right? You really have to embody. Like, I'm gonna tell you something Gypsy used to make me do, right? He literally used to make me stalk a chair. Like this, the kind of chair, a folding chair, right? Like literally, this was the head of the dog, right? This is the head of the dog, and this is the butt of the dog. I hope, hold on, let me take the chat off because I'm looking at the chat, make sure y'all can see it, right? So this is the head of the dog, and this is the butt of the dog, right? I literally used to have to stalk chairs because and as crazy as it sounds, what it did for me, it forced me to use my imagination and imagine the dog making certain movements as I'm making movements. So I'm literally making the chair move as I'm doing my movements, right? So it's that mental exercise. So anyway, that's typically how I start out, especially with a young dog, because here's the thing about defense, right? And this is where a lot of people go wrong and why defense has such a bad name, because you got too many dummies out there that really don't know how to do it. They put way too much pressure on the dog. They break a dog, and then you get the attitude that we have now towards defense, which is why so many people go towards prey drive. Because you got so many people that are so overzealous about seeing a dog being aggressive that they put too much pressure on the dog, and you create fear-biting dogs. That's where that term comes from, right? You beat a dog basically into a corner to where it has no option but to bite, right? Fight or flight. But the problem is they use no tact. They use no decorum while doing it. It's just straight brute force. Hey, you're going to bite me. You're going to bite me. I'm going to keep beating your ass until you bite me, right? That's essentially what they do. I think I told you the last time, there's certain things that I've seen and heard people do that I just, if I feel like I have to resort to some of the things that I've seen and heard people do, I'll stop training.
Yeah.
I just won't train anymore. I refuse to do it. I'm not using no cattle prod on the dog. I'm not, listen, man. Listen to me. I've seen trainers bite a dog's balls.
Right.
Like,
If you
no
got to do all
exaggeration.
that to make a dog bite, then he's not the dog that you probably want to use for a protection dog.
Yeah.
Listen, man.
Sometimes as trainers, we just have to give our clients the raw truth. And
Listen.
if you got any dog that you have to hit with a cattle prong, it's either one or two things. You don't know what you're doing, or he's not the right dog.
Right.
You know, Brandon, you can go ahead and finish. I'm sorry, I had to butt into that when you're talking about hitting with a
Yes.
cattle prong and biting balls. If you got to bite balls to get a dog to bite, then I mean, shit, that's that's
Listen.
what LGBTQT stuff. We don't need that in the dog world.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why defense, so to speak, has such a bad name, because you got so many people, man, that does outlandish stuff to get a dog to bite. And I'm not willing to do that. So, but yeah, that's how I would start a dog, especially a young dog.
Let me ask you guys something.
Joe,
How
before
do you,
you ask that question, can I chime in on?
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
one
Yeah.
question?
Yes, sir.
So he mentioned, how would you start a cane corso? So in my protection work, I start all dogs the same. So Brandon mentioned stalking, and in my start, I start with the dog's suspicion, and to when you stalk something, if we go by the definition of the word, you're closing distance on it. You're going to it. You're creeping up on it. You're trying to sneak up on it. You're going to get it when you stalk something. In my young dogs that I'm just starting, the first thing I want to do is build up their suspicion and anything that I do to that dog, I'm going away from him or I'm moving laterally to him. I just want to, in the first stages, I just want to build up that suspicion. And it's kind of like if my dog was sitting up on a porch and somebody's walking past my house going down the street. They're not coming at him, they're not stalking him, but I want him to at least be curious about that person at first. So I want that dog to look up and engage to see what that person is actually doing before my dog goes back to what he's doing. So, and to answer Broken Bow's question, like I said, I would start a Corso the same way I would start any dog, and that is my first part is just building suspicion.
Mm-hmm.
I want him to, he don't even have to do nothing but look.
Right.
Just look at something. And if he looks at it, then I know I got something to keep building on, you know? And if he didn't look at it, now sometimes when dogs are not interested in anything, and you may, like Brandon said, now that's when I'm going to stalk. I'm going to stalk just to see if that would make him curious or interested, because sometimes you have an overconfident dog and an overconfident dog, people will misread him and think that he's not interested, but he's just not, he don't care about what you're doing out there because he don't see you as no threat to him at all. When you got a weak dog, sometimes a weak dog, just your presence may make that dog bark and alert. And some people think they got a bad dog when they actually got a weak dog. You know? So but to answer his question, man, I like to just build up a dog's curiosity first. And if I can get him curious and build up and make him suspicious about things, then I know I can go on to that next level.
Let me slide one in here. Excuse me, y'all. I'm gonna slide one in here on y'all. When do you know when to put a dog up? How long do these sessions last?
Oh, let me talk about that one. Oh, let me jump in first. And the reason why I want to jump in first is because I just recently seen a video, and there's another protection page. A lady from Australia, Sharon. Sharon has a protection page, and she just put up a video about dogs spinning on the back tire, spinning on the leash. And there's a guy out there, a great trainer named Hans. And Hans did a video, and he spoke about the spinning on the leash, and he said that is called superstitious behavior. And I wanted to chime in on that because, man, some of us dog trainers, we put words to things that just, to me, just don't make much sense. And that dog that spins on that back tie is probably a dog that most trainers have stayed out there too damn long doing the same old shit over and over with that dog. And you got an anxious dog. You got a dog that wants to engage, but he's being restricted and he has resistance. So now it's kind of like a man beating his chest. That dog may spin because he's wanting to get at you, but he's being held back. Some of you guys probably may have dogs in kennels, and you see your dog barking at the next dog in the kennel, and you'll see him spinning. So it's just because he's wanting to engage and he's being restricted. But you take that dog that's spinning on the leash, let him go. Now, do you think he'd spin without nobody holding him? So a lot of times when people are agitating dogs, man, they stay out there way too damn long. They do it. It's too much damn repetition. And that will create that spinning. And it also, these dogs are so damn smart. They will pick up to your pattern.
Yeah.
And if you go out there with the same pattern, he know you're gonna jump at him twice, and then you're gonna go over there and get the sleeve. You're gonna get him, or he know you're gonna come out there, raise your hand at him, jump back, do it again. So the dog will pick up to your pattern, and he just entertaining you because
you out there doing the same old shit all the damn time.
Right.
So when you starting the dog, man, I get in there, be quick, be effective, get out.
Gotcha.
Especially if you're making real protection dogs. Now, if you're doing sport dog shit, then that's different because you're training to a particular thing that you want when you're doing sport dog stuff. So you're training to this particular thing. So now you're trying to do it over and over and over till you get the result that you want. And a lot of those trainers do it too much. But when you're training a sport dog, I mean a real protection dog, we don't know how it's going to get presented to us in the streets. We don't know how it's going to come. So we can't really train for a specific. We can train for a scenario, but we can't be too specific about it.
Gotcha.
So get in there, do your thing, and get out of there.
Uh-oh. Clyde fell off. So Hecka, being a pupil of the late Gypsy Stratton, what age do you start using muzzle work for the fight drive?
It's not an age. It's when the dog shows me that it's ready for the muzzle. And how I determine if it's ready for a muzzle, when I see that motherfucker really wants to bite me.
Right.
That's literally the barometer. When I see that he really wants to bite me, and I have not let him bite anything yet, right?
Right.
The only thing that they've probably bitten up until that point is a burlap sack, because I typically only use sleeves, suits when I am testing a dog, right? For the most part, outside of that, I don't use that equipment because that's what that equipment is for. I truly believe we grossly misuse bite equipment, in the protection world, really in the sport world, right? So up until that point, the only thing that a dog has bitten before I put that muzzle on him is a burlap sack. But once I see that dog really wants to tear me a new asshole, that's when I put the muzzle on him, and that's when we start, quote unquote, muzzle fighting.
Gotcha.
Thus far in my training, man, in my protection dog training, thus far, I'm lucky enough that I've never had I have never had to put a muzzle on my dogs. I'm not against muzzle work. I think muzzle work is one of the best ways of testing your dog. But like I said, I've been fortunate enough that I'm able to get what I want out of a dog without having to put a muzzle on him to know if he'll actually bite. I read dogs pretty well, and I know in most cases if the dog I'm training will bite, and I know why he wants to bite. I know if he's forced or if I know if he's really wanting to engage. So I come back in on the end of the conversation, and in my training, man, I don't bring. Only time I play with equipment with my dogs is when I'm just playing with my puppies. I may let them chase a rag, and I teach them how to bite, and I teach them how to fight, all when they're little puppies, man. When I got the opportunity to work with a young puppy, I'm teaching him. I'm play fighting with him. Now again, it's all in play, but I'm teaching him. And laying the foundation in this puppy for where I want him to be later.
Gotcha. Wait, super low food drive. Anyway, defense is king. I never train my dogs to bite me. Okay.
Great job.
Yes, sir. How you doing, Miss Brown? Glad you're back, Clyde, she say.
Thank you.
DK K9, some people call it the boogeyman technique. Are we referring to stalking there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Definitely. I mean, at some point in my training, you know, you call it what you want to call it, stalking boogeyman, but yeah, it's definitely gonna. I mean, that's definitely a part of my process, and it's just appearing and disappearing, and what that disappearing is, that's my dog's reward for actually not being able to get a bite. But see, my dog's reward in most cases, he is not a bite. By the time my dog actually get a chance to bite something, he's so frustrated and so aggravated with this damn agitator. He's one, like Brandon used earlier. He's literally wanting to tear you a new asshole.
Right.
Yeah. So Brocadere says you doing this suspicion exercise with the dog back tied or on leash with handler, right? I'm sure it's on leash. And maybe
So Joe, when I first start a dog, the handler's nowhere near. He's on a back tie. And the reason why he's on a back tie, I want to get a true assessment of that dog. I want to see if that dog really wants to do this. A dog with his handler can sometimes, I mean, the handler is their security blanket. So they may tend to show out and do things right there with their handler because their handler is like their daddy standing behind it. So they may act bad and act tough. So I start a dog out by himself. And that way I can tell if this dog really wants to do this protection work. Because again, guys, my protection work is for real. It gets civil real quick. It's not for play. So everything that I do to this dog, even though we're training, is serious to the dog. You know? So I start that dog on a back tie because I want to see how he is out there by himself with nobody praising him, nobody telling him good boy. I don't even let my clients tell their dog good boy in the beginning.
Gotcha. Broken bow canine. I think the answer is to wait until you just got the dog to the climax of the activity while excitement is highest to ensure they don't get tired or bored. I believe he's talking about when they end the session. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Chronicles of a Mastiff. What's happening, brother? I'm looking for more questions.
If I can, I actually wanted to answer that question as well. Because this is one of the few things where, Clyde and I are slightly different. And not to say that, again, that is wrong. These are some of the nuances, right, that I was talking about where, from trainer to trainer, there's going to be some small things that are going to be different. But the end goal is always the same, right? So, like me, the only time that I would use a back tie on a dog is if I have multiple dogs that I'm working at the same time. And the handlers are inexperienced. So really for me, it'll be for safety reasons that I use it. And that's not very often. So I rarely, if ever, will put a dog on a back tie. For me, from the moment that person comes to me and starts training, that dog is in the handler's hand. Because for me, training the handler in every moment that I'm training the dog is just as important as training the dog for me. So again, the only time that I would, like really proactively put a dog on a back tie is if there's multiple dogs that I'm working. And, obviously you can't keep your eye on everybody at the same time, right? So if I'm one-on-one with a person, there's much more, I'm looking at that person, I see what they're doing, right? But if I'm training multiple dogs at the same time and I focus on this dog over here, but then this handler over here trips and falls or something and the dog is free, then, I'm fucked, right? So for safety reasons is the reason why I personally will use a back tie. But For me, man, I want that handler to feel everything that dog is doing. I want that dog to feel everything that the handler is doing. Now, how I teach my handlers how to hold the dog, especially in the beginning, essentially they are a back tie. How I teach them how to hold it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So technically, the handler is the back tie, right? But again, you're getting that synergy between the handler and the dog to where even in the beginning, right, where I have the handler just basically, I tell them be a tree, right? And I'm not going to go through all my techniques on what I tell them to do and how to hold it. But
Mm-hmm.
essentially, you are a tree. The same way we would tie that dog up to a tree or a metal pole, how I tell them to hold the dog, they become a living back tie.
Mm.
Now let me chime in again on that and like Brandon said, man, we all may have some different techniques and different uh ways that we do things and reasons that we do things. So the reason why, like I said, I start my dog first out by itself is because, see, my dogs are not just personal protection dogs. They're not just going to be in my hands all the time. They may be out there in the yard. So they need to, like I said, I need them to have that confidence out there by themselves without me at the end of a leash or without me encouraging them and patting them on the back. You know what I'm saying? So, but again, like Brandon said, once I see that the dog got it and I done built up that's the most important part, is having that dog in that owner or handler's hand and teaching that handler how to handle their dog. When I see people that's been in dog training classes for 3 or 4 weeks and they got a leash balled up in their hand or wrapped around their hand,
Yeah.
that just told me that their handler or their trainer isn't teaching them. He's doing some protection work, but isn't teaching them how to handle the dog correctly.
Right.
There's no way you should have that leash balled up or wrapped around your hand. So if you're already, there was a picture with a girl, she's doing she showed a picture, and it's in that protection dog page. She showed a picture. She had just done a BH title, and she had a picture with that leash wrapped around her hand. Now here you are titling a dog for a BH, and you have no handling skills at all, and that's because their handler probably didn't elaborate or didn't demand that. Soon as I start working with my clients, I teach them how to handle that leash.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to wrap it around your hand.
Right.
Mm.
We're not going to ball it up in your hand. You're not going to walk around with your hand up in the air. I teach them how to start handling the dog right off the bat. So to elaborate, like I said, what Brandon said, yes, his stages just come a little earlier, but mine come later on. And once I start and find that I got a dog that I can work with, I done built that suspicion. I done tested his fight drive. Now it's about connecting him and linking him with that handler.
Mm-hmm.
So I teach my dogs on the back tie, they get to lunge and jump at you all they want. But once they get in that handler's hand, now I'm teaching them, I don't want the dog lunging and jumping at you. He can still show an amount of aggression and protective work without lunging, because you take a little girl or a little lady or even an older man with a big old Corso and that dog is lunging out at somebody for a bite, then he can easily get away from that man and bite somebody that don't deserve to be bitten. So once I put the dog in the handler's hand, I'm teaching that handler and that dog to stay in, to have a certain amount of control.
Mm. Gotcha. All right. Actually, she said she not scared, y'all. Listen what she said. She said the sexiest man alive to me is the boogeyman. She
What's
being
that?
Actually said the sexiest man alive to me is
Uh,
the boogeyman. She be in the comments, boy.
Man,
Okay, let's see here. Chronicles of Massive, Chronicles of Massive. I'm gonna get knocked some of these questions. It's getting late. Mala Ventures. Is it true that the dog have high pitched bark is more on prey drive due to the excitement and wants to play? Then the lower the bark with growl, shorter teeth is defensive drive.
man, I think it comes back to individually just knowing your dog. You know what I'm
right.
saying? Hey, when my voice get high, get out of my way. You know, I ain't in prey drive when my voice get high. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yes.
So I think it's all about just knowing your dog. You know, I've had a dog, Joe, that she very seldom barked. She would
Uh-huh.
just look at you and she would eat your ass up. You know, so that high pitched bark. Sometimes, I mean, they're screaming, just let me loose, let me get him, let me kill him. So
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that he's in. To me, it doesn't mean that he's in any prey or fight drive. It's just about knowing your dog.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
Okay.
agree with that.
Okay. Let me see what Chronicles of a Massive, Clyde. Like this is for you. Okay, so Clyde, that back tie is for guard dog, aka property protection on its own. Is that a statement or a question, Chronicle?
I think it's a question.
What they mean it as a question? No, it's not just for guard dog and property, but even my personal protection is your personal protection dog. Is he going to always be in your hand? I mean, that's for that person to answer. Will your personal protection dog ever be outside in your yard? If you got a good protection dog like mine, I can be at the park with Q or my dog, and my dog don't even have to be on leash, so he's not going to be in my hand all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I want my dog to be comfortable out by himself. So it's not about guard dog. It's not about property protection. It's just about I want to make sure that I got a dog that's just not confident when I'm standing behind him.
Gotcha.
And the reason I have had a dog that with me standing on the leash, you think she was a killer, but by herself and me not around, even with me in her presence where she could see me, she would act like that. But if I left the picture, total different dog.
Mm. I wish they came out with the school before you get the dog, how to handle a dog. Okay, Clyde, he's coming back at you for some more. He says, Clyde, your training sounds conflicting. You training a dog to go and bite, then attempt to train him to stay by your side when activated is a question he's asking.
Or tell him if it's go CT's Touch Horses /dogs. That's my YouTube page, and you can go to making protection dogs. So what I do is, yes, I build this dog up when he's by himself, but then once he gets with me, now I teach him to control that energy, control that aggressiveness. So yes, I do it. The way I do it is kind of, in some people's eyes, they may see it backwards. But at first, I want that dog comfortable with pulling. See, I never use harnesses on a dog. I want a dog comfortable with pulling on his neck.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, now I'm teaching him to heel or teaching him to come, and I'm teaching him to give to that pressure. So dogs learn the difference. They learn when it's okay, when it's not okay. So that's what makes me, I think, a pretty good trainer, is because I can take a dog to a point and then bring him back down and let him learn when the differences are. See, a lot of Mali guys, they wouldn't put no. I won't even say Mally guys. A lot of protection dog trainers, they don't even believe in putting obedience on a dog first because they think it may take out some of his drive to want to fight and bite.
Yeah. Cap his drive.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm just the opposite. I'm just the opposite, man. So if you don't understand my methods or techniques, that's okay. That's cool. But it produced results.
Gotcha. Samurai Kennels in the house. Hey, let me ask you this, man. I'm gonna start with you, Brandon. So when we was what's happening here? Brandon fell out for a minute.
Okay.
So there we go. He back up in the house. Let me get him back in here.
I'm trying to go to the chat and I keep hitting the leave button by accident.
Oh yeah. Don't worry about chat. I'm gonna put him up. So when you see guys, when we was a child, we spake as a child. Now that we know more, we don't do that no more. So, Clyde, when you first started pointing me out, Joe, looking at this video, this dude is fake protection dog. That ain't real. He's just a sleeve biting mug. You know what I'm saying? Is that? Can you prove your dog still that way by showing, hey, I showed that my stock can bite. I might not can do it like y'all's, but I'm showing that it will bite. Is that a proof of a working dog?
No, not necessarily.
Did I confuse you, bro?
Yeah, you confused me.
Okay.
Go ahead, Brandon. I think Brandon's on it. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Brandon.
If you're asking what I think you're asking, basically, you're saying that if someone,
it's not on your level,
video on social media,
right,
showing that their dog is biting the sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
So in their mind, just because their dog is biting the sleeve, they're deeming this dog as a working dog.
Working dog, yes, sir.
No, because especially depending on how you train that dog could just be playing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a glorified game of tug of war.
Good answer. Yeah.
So it really depends on how that dog was trained. Mm-hmm. Because you take that same dog and you take away the sleeve and you put a man in front of that person, that dog won't bite wet bread on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it really just depends on how that dog was trained.
Gotcha. Okay. Clyde fell out again. Hold on a minute. Let's see here. Samurai Kennels in the house. Chronicles of a Massive. Let's see what he said. I thought we were talking guardian dogs.
Nah, so matter of fact, let me clarify some of that as well, right? Because again, nuances, are going to vary depending on the trainer. So what Clyde was talking about as far as testing a dog's willingness to fight on his own, right? I do that as well. I just do it in a different way. Like I typically do that at that stage. That's typically when I'm doing what I call perimeter training, right? So the dog is behind the fence. The owner may be in the house or, somewhere else on the property, just depending on the setup. And it's me and the dog at the fence, right? And then, that's the first phase, right? Testing to see if the dog is willing to challenge me behind the fence. So I'm on the other side of the fence. The dog is on the other side of the fence and I'm working the dog, right? So there's a barrier in between. Then we get to a point where I actually open that gate and see if that dog is still willing to move forward and maintain or even take it to the next level of aggression when I come in that gate. Because we all know I had a Chinese Shar-Pei growing up, right? Mm-hmm. And behind the gate, you would think this dog was a goddamn, you would think it was a honey badger.
Yeah.
I mean, biting the fence, barking, growling, mouth bleeding. As soon as you open that fence, he go quiet, he just stand there. Nothing. Literally, night and day. Like it was amazing. I'm talking about you open the fence, right? You come in, nothing. He come up to you, smell you. You go out the fence and start walking down the fence line, and it's like you would think you tried to steal his food or something. Like it was amazing.
Yeah, he's been conditioned for so long. People walking down the street, and he's a dog that I mean, that's his entertainment.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's his thrill of the day.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And a lot of dogs are like that. You would
A
think
lot of them are.
a lot of them are like that. So you have to know how to make sure you're testing each level of the dog, right? You can't just stop and think that this dog is aggressive behind the fence, so it's gonna bite. Because most dogs, you walk in that fence, they're gonna start backing up.
Mm-hmm.
So a dog definitely has to have that dog in him, so to speak, to where if I'm not there, he got to fight, because protecting my property is a part of being a protection dog.
And I think a lot of that comes, now that's where it comes when you really need, if you don't have a vicious or a mean dog, then now that's when the training comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So you see a vicious or a mean dog, he just wants to bite you for no damn reason.
Oh man.
Yeah, he fell out. Okay, so we'll wait on him to come back in. The snowman. Jeezy, is that you? Let's see here. I'm gonna go through these comments. Thank you, Miss Isley. I appreciate it. I appreciate everything.
Coming in, man.
Yeah, they coming in. They filling up in here. Sometimes be jumping about 50 people up in here.
Is 50 people in here now?
Yeah, I've just been jumping up and down between 40 and 50 people. That's a good sign, though. I mean, later on, it's gonna really be.
Yeah.
Summarize. Jim No Rulers, man. Thanks for shouting me out a few months back, man. I really appreciate that. There's Clyde back in here. Student for life, force multiplier, and CT both have the experience that you can't fake. All right. Thanks for dropping the link. Do y'all think, let's see here. Do y'all think most protection training is a scam?
Whew.
That's a loaded question.
Oh man. I'm not gonna say, okay, how do I want to word this? I'm not gonna say most, because what I believe is most of the guys that train in the model of training that I deem to be sport training and not protection training, I believe they really believe they're doing protection training.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them. Now, I will say a great deal, right, of them, if I had to put a percentage of it, I would say 60% probably really deep down inside believe they are doing real protection training, right? The other 40%, I believe they are frauds, which is still a very high number. It's not most, but it's a very high number.
Right. Right. Okay. Let's see here. CTs touch horses and dogs. Okay. Clyde, you here?
Yeah, I'm here, man. I don't know. Every time somebody try to call me, it cuts me out. I'm gonna figure it out.
Okay. Clyde, Chronicles of a Masters. Here he coming back for you. So here he goes. I agree 100% with you, Force Multi. Damn, Clyde, where'd you go? No dog bite. I'll say that question for later, Force Multiplier. Thanks for answering my question. Oh, there
he say
you
he do what? He say he do what, Joe?
He said, I agree 100% with you, Force Multiplier. No dog bites for no reason, Clyde. Come on, I'm questioning your actual knowledge, or could it be you're not very articulate in your explanation? I think he told you to go look at his videos, bro, and yeah, I don't know what you want to.
Yeah. What, Joe? What do you think? What was his original question?
Man, I forget. Let me go back and look. It was something.
Don't worry about it. Because I did I told him to go look at my videos. There's a link that and it shows in on CT's Touch making protection dogs.
Right. So somebody asked about damn, you on the money. Okay. Until I found this channel and discovered Mr. Gypsy and Clyde's 3-part series, I now know who to distinguish between the sports trainers and real protection trainers. But this is the thing. Being able to distinguish, we know that. But how do we distinguish a bad one? You know what I mean? A bad trainer. Because I know, Clyde, you was talking about wordplay earlier.
Man, you know, Joe, like I say, to me, what distinguishes some of the good trainers and bad trainers to me is that just so much of the shit they do is just not practical out here in the real world. If what you do, if you're talking about, okay, it's kind of like that see, I don't even watch these sci-fi movies, but there's a movie where a man shoots a gun and the bullet will curve around certain things and go hit the target.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That shit ain't happening when I pull my gun. If I shoot somebody, it ain't gonna curve around and go around shit. So that shit's not practical.
Mm-hmm.
It looks good on TV. So when I see trainers doing stuff that's just so unpractical, like these sport dog trainers, and they call it protection, they out there with the milk jugs, and you only can do so much of that shit. Mm-hmm. So at first, I would think that all these jugs and these pop bottles, that's just to see if the dog will work through a distraction. And once you see he'll work through the distractions, why continue all that BS? You know, mm-hmm. To be honest, Joe, if you go back and look at if anybody's watching this, go look at CT's Touch horses/dogs and see when the last time I did a training session with Q. Mm-hmm. It's going to be months, but I can make one tomorrow. Or if I got in a situation tonight where I needed Q, then I know that he would do what I prepared him for. So I'm saying you don't have to, when it's real, you don't have to do this shit day in, day out, all day, every day. There's a couple of trainers on there. I'll be like, man, shit, is his wife may feel left out. His family may feel left out because they're putting so much into this training. Mm-hmm. For sport dog stuff, and I think even the protection dogs that's feeding the BS to their clients, they got their clients feeling that they need this every day, all day. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think I got off the original question. But when you are going beyond what's practical, what's really useful, then that's when I start calling it BS or just kind of shunning away from what it is that a person's doing.
Right. This reminds me of the first dog training book I read back in '95, the Kohler method of guard dog training. I bet y'all methods are way different than the Kohler method. I think that's a lot of trainers start, but you think they kind of move from it, or is it a lot of people still lined up with it?
Man, I personally, you know, I've stuck basically with that foundation.
The foundation of it. Okay.
The foundation of it. Now, I'm not doing things exact to a T, and I didn't read the whole book. I'm gifted in this dog stuff where, man, I can take some information and then I can go ahead and add like my own twist to it. But it's still not my method like a lot of people want to start claiming methods. Mm-hmm. You know, all I did was tweaked it to make it work better for me. I'm about sufficiency and efficiency. So if I can get to a point more sufficient and be more effective, then that's the route I take.
Gotcha. Student for life dog training. Appreciate the five piece. Samurai Kennels, what's up, brother? Appreciate the 5-piece. I like your channel over there. Last call for alcohol, y'all. Last call. It's a Monday night. I know everybody got to go to work and things like that. Jay Diz, people think this TV and they can send their dog running down the street to bite someone. Try that movie shit and you'll end up in court.
Mhm.
True facts.
CT has crafted his own methods. Samurai, student for life. These are the conversations I love. Been following CT since 2014 in Korea.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's see. Yeah, I think I got all the questions I asked. Anything else y'all want to say before we wrap it up?
Man, I want to talk about just basic obedience and training with tools and food and any training tool that you use. So at some point in time, whatever tools you use, you have to break away from the tools. And I got to do a video. I'm gonna do a video on that here real quick too. So if I take my vehicle to the shop and they needed a 9/16 wrench to fix my problem, and once I go pick my car up and pay them my money, they hand me this 9/16 wrench and say, hey, take this with you.
Mm-hmm.
And if I got to take it with me and constantly use it, is my truck fixed?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the same thing with your training tools. At some point in time, you gotta test your training. See, is my training, where am I at in my training? Do I still have to use these tools? And that's the deal with so many trainers, is they don't break away from their tools, and then they send their clients home with this tool, especially in the board and trains. When you're paying $2,000 for a whole 6 weeks of training, and they're supposed to be training your dog every day. When you go get your dog, you shouldn't have to take home no goddamn remote.
Mm-hmm.
Your dog shouldn't have to still have a prong collar on.
Mm-hmm.
So if they still have to take the tools and use the tools daily, then you can't say your dog is trained.
Okay.
There's levels to obedience. There's basic, which is leash and collar or whatever it is. But then you have to get past the basic. You have to go to some off leash and even advanced with just hand signals. But when you go to advanced and once you go past basics, you ought to be able to start shying away from your training tools. If you're not, you're really not a good trainer. Your dog really isn't trained. And I stand on that. And I don't care. Like a lot of times I say shit and people say I'm messing with their money. It's not personal.
Yeah.
It's not personal at all. I just see the BS. And I got a friend out there. I'm going to give him a shout. He's in Louisiana. He's a good trainer. His name is John Mims. And John Mims said something. He said, when we take our dog to a trainer, regardless of who we are, when we train that person's dog to that person, we're the best trainer in the world. And a lot of times it's because the people that we train their dogs, they don't know no better. So I'm not that guy that's going to take advantage of your lack of knowledge. I'm going to give you the same thing that I would give somebody that knew. And so many trainers, they take advantage of their clients' lack of knowledge.
Gotcha.
And that's when if it come across my page or if it come across my feed, shit, I might speak on it. And if it fuck your dollar up, oh well.
Hecker, do you want to chime in on anything on that?
Nah, man, I can't think of anything profound to say at the moment.
Yeah.
Nah, I can't think of anything to say.
Cool. All right.
Thing, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm one of the most basic trainers out here. You know, you remember how like a lot of times they say a chick is basic?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm basic, man. I'm just easy and simple as 1, 2, 3, and that's how I try to keep all my training, man. I try to keep it as basic and as simple as it can be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I see. Listen to the Chronicles of Master. Joe, you letting Clyde off the hook? No, I'm not. I just ain't gonna make the show about you, bro. I ain't gonna make
Tell
the show
him
your
to
show.
reach out to me. Hey,
Yeah.
I'll give him my personal number. Tell him he can reach out to me and we can chop this subject up. And I guarantee you I can make it make sense.
Yeah. No, I'm letting it go. You
Right.
came in late. Shit. Yeah. So yeah, man. I guess we go ahead and wrap it up. And everything. This is a Monday night, and I appreciate you guys coming in and doing this for the people. And like Clyde said, man, this is I put this podcast together because I like to learn, and other people like to teach and learn as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it might affect people money, but that I ain't worried about your money. You know what I mean? I get my own money, but this is just somewhere we learn and stuff. So some other ideas you might see on here ain't popular, but we don't care because we want to bounce the ideas and put some fat on the head. So if it affects your money, oh well, don't watch this shit.
Yeah.
Amen. Hey, Hecker, I enjoyed being on the podcast with you, man. And I tell you what, this is the first one that Joe, I don't know. It was a lot of questions come in on this one.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of involvement with the with our audience, man. So I mean, I'm willing, like I told you, Joe, man. Hey, you tell those people reach out to you and give you some topics and subjects that they may want, and if they can handle it, the raw truth, and that's it, especially if I got it and know it, man, we'll give it to them.
Right. So, and I'm gonna tag y'all names up in this video so everybody get the credit, and y'all should be able to tag on the title. Boom, boom, go straight to they channel and share these brother stuff. Y'all share this content. I think it's a pretty good channel, and get the word out.
Yes, sir.
All right. Heckle, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Deuces.
All right. Deuces.
Peace and love.
All right. Bet. Appreciate it, brother.